Hello friends, welcome back to ElfinCode. Those who are new to this channel, please do subscribe this channel, and if you like the video then press like button and also hit the notification button. So today we will be continuing with one more design pattern. So this is Proxy Design Pattern. It comes under the Structural Design Pattern. So again, in this video we will be again dividing this video into two part. One will be kind of theory part and the other will be practical part. So first we will let us try to learn the theory part. Before going into this slide, I would like to tell you what exactly proxy pattern is. So it is like you have you have something which is actual object, okay, but you want to hide that actual object with a kind of proxy gateway. So when a client want to interact with the actual object, it will first interact with the proxy object, and then proxy object will evaluate that request and maybe put some kind of feature over those request and then send it to the actual object. Okay, so this is what the proxy design pattern is. So you have a encapsulation of the actual object under the proxy object. Okay, so let us now go over the definition of proxy design pattern. So the proxy design pattern is a structural pattern which provide a placeholder for the actual object to control access to it. So as I was telling that you have the actual object which is underlying over the proxy object. So any client who want to interact with the actual object, he might be feeling that he is interacting with the actual object, but he is actually interacting with the proxy object. Okay, so the first layer would be a proxy object, and then it will control the access. The proxy class will be controlling the access of the actual object. Okay, so this is what the proxy design is. Now where it can be useful, it is like controlling the access of the real object. So let's suppose if you want to implement some kind of access control mechanism over the real object, then what you can do, when there's a request which is coming to the proxy object, it will evaluate that request saying that whether the user is an authenticate user or not, whether the user is an admin user or it's a normal user or some specific user. So depending upon that user's category, it may create or kind of give the access to the actual object for accessing the various different component. Okay, then it can also be used for the lazy loading. Now what exactly lazy loading is, we have already studied in the singleton pattern that if there's already a object created, then second time if there's a request going to create the same object, it will check whether the object has already been created earlier or not. If it is already created, then it will give the reference to the earlier created object. So lazy loading is also related to this only, wherein you have some resources, like you want to load some kind of data from the database or something like that. If a access has already been requested to load the data from, let's say, database, and it has already been loaded, then the second request which will be coming to load the same data to, let's say, in some caching layer, if it is already existing, then it will be providing you the already accessed data instead of again connecting to the resources and extract the data and then put it to the cache layer. So it's a kind of lazy loading implementation, can also be done using the proxy design pattern. And then the third one, it says that to add the additional functionality. Now what additional functionality you can add, let's suppose you have an actual object implementation which is a kind of core, like you want to execute some kind of command on some particular external cell. But before that, what you want to do, you want to log those activity. So in the proxy implementation of the object, you will log all those details and then call the actual method, actual object, and then it allow you to run certain kind of command on the shell. So these are the kind of useful cases where you can use this proxy design pattern to make your work done. Okay, now let us see the property of the proxy design pattern. Now what property says that these are the things which are kind of exist when you go with the proxy design pattern. Now, the first property, it says that abstract interface matching. So it says that, I mean, when you have a proxy object, when you have a real object, and there's a client, okay. Now, client, when interact with the proxy object, he is in a impression that he is interacting with the actual object, okay. Whereas he is actually interacting with the proxy object, but he has an impression that he's actually interacting with the actual object. So the proxy as well as actual object definition should be the same. So it should have the same method, okay, accessible to the client as the actual method. Then only he will feel that he is actually interacting with the actual object, whereas he is interacting with the proxy object. But the feeling will comes only when you have the similar definition. They could be the similar definition, in the sense the method should be same, but the definition could be different, okay. So so I mean, how we can implement those things? By keeping a abstract method or kind of interface which will get inherited in the proxy class as well as real class. So the definition or the schema of both proxy as well as actual class will be same, okay. So this will make an impression to the client that he is interacting with the actual object instead of proxy object, okay. Now the second property is placeholder object, okay. Now let's suppose uh, I mean, there are different kind of users, okay, who want to interact with some kind of resources, or as I was telling in the previous slide that let's suppose if they are user who want to run some certain kind of command on the command shell, okay. So they are interacting with the proxy object, but proxy object will be adding some kind of additional functionality in the same definition, saying that whether that user is having the authorization to run the given command in the command shell or not. So those kind of check you can do in the proxy class, okay. So that's the reason it says that it's a placeholder object, okay. So where you have a placeholder, where you are doing all those kind of processing before you actually execute the command on the shell. Okay, so it's a kind of, I mean, the proxy object will be acting as a placeholder object. Okay, now the third part, it says that object encapsulation. So object encapsulation is also similar to all this thing, wherein what happens that actual object is being encapsulated by the proxy object. So the client is having an impression he is interacting with the actual object, whereas he is actually interacting with the proxy object. So this is what the object encapsulation is. Now the fourth property it says is lazy loading. Okay, this is also similar to the resource loading into some kind of caching, wherein if when there was a request gone to the object to load the resources like database data or something like that, and it has already loaded the data to the caching layer, then the second request, if it goes, then it should be checking whether the resources are already available in the cache or not. If it is available, then it should refer that I mean, it should be giving you in return the object which are already loaded in the cache, instead of again going and connecting it to the resource and get the data loaded. So via proxy design you can implement it very well. So you have a proxy class which will first check whether resources are already available in the cache or not. If it is available, then it will return the address of the cached loaded data, okay. Whereas if it is not available, it will connect to the actual object creation, which will load the data from some database or some resources to the caching layer, okay. So this is what the lazy loading is. Now the fifth one is control access, okay. Now what control access means is that you know when you have certain kind of when you have this proxy class, so here you can add certain kind of additional access check. So if a particular user is trying to access a particular website, so he should be redirected to maybe a subdomain of that website, saying that the user is belonging to this category or that category. If he's belonging to, let's say, A category, he will be having more access right to the same website, whereas if he's belonging to, let's say, B category, he might be having a little lesser access right to the same site. So those kind of thing can also be done using the control access properties. So these are the properties of the proxy design pattern. So let us switch to the practical part, and let us see how we can I mean how we have used one of the example to implement the proxy design. Okay, now here if you say the first property of the this proxy design pattern was having a similar kind of schema. So if you see this actual gateway, okay, now this actual gateway, this is one of the this is actual object, I mean the real object. Okay, so here if you see, it has a execute call kind of method definition. Okay, now this is a proxy gateway. Now this proxy gateway is accessible to the user. Okay, now if you see this proxy gateway, again it is having only one definition, which is execute all. Okay, so the actual and proxy gateway both are having similar schema, only one definition, which is execute call. So the definition is different, but the schema is same. So the implementation of execute all in the real object is different to what is there in the proxy object, but this method name and everything are same. So how we have ensured this? By making an abstract class. Okay, now this is an abstract class. Okay, and which is having a kind of execute all abstract method, and we are inheriting this abstract class in both the actual object as well as the proxy object. Okay, so this is how we have implemented the first property of the proxy design pattern. Okay, now let us understand what this example is saying. Okay, so let us come down to this main section. Okay, now what we are saying, so this is a proxy gateway. Okay, now for this proxy gateway, what we have done, we have passed three different kind of different kind of values. One is admin, one is user, and the third one is other. Okay, so these are the three different value which we have passed to the constructor of the proxy gateway. So let us go back to the proxy gateway to see what this parameter is doing. So this is a proxy gateway. So we have passed three different users. Okay, so one is kind of admin, the second one is user, and third one is other. Okay, so it first check whether the is authorized flag is false or not. Okay, and then it sets the user. Okay, it says the self dot user to the value. Okay, this value is nothing but either admin, user, or other. Okay, so if it is between admin, user, and other, okay, then what it says, it says that you are authorized to access the gateway. Okay, and then what it says, since you are authorized to access the gateway, okay, so this flag is set. Okay, and then one more thing, I mean it is also creating a kind of object for the actual gateway. So till this, I mean this constructor is taken care of. Thereafter what we did, if you see, these are the object. With this object we call the execute call. Okay, now this execute call is nothing but the execute call method which is present in the proxy object. Okay, so if you again go back to the proxy object. Okay, so this is my proxy object execute all. So it says that in this constructor, it has already set the is authorized to true. Why? Because we have the user like admin, user, and other. So is authorized is already true. Okay, so if it is true, then it checks whether the user, okay, which was passed to create the object, is admin. If it is admin, then what it is doing, whatever command is present, it add this. I mean, whatever command it is passed to the execute call, it add user. I mean, it append the additional endpoint to it, user equal to admin. Okay, if it is user, then to the endpoint it add user equal to user. Okay, if it is other, yeah, if it is other or anything else, it just say that other user don't have gateway implementation at present. Okay, so they are adding certain kind of endpoint depending upon the users. Okay, so let us see here. Okay, so it calls the execute method with the with this particular parameter abc.com. So what will happen if it is an admin user, then www.abc.com and then slash user admin. So this is how it will get appended. Okay, after it get appended, what it will do, it will take the object. See, look, this is the object of the actual gateway implementation. Okay, it takes the object and call the execute call method of the actual object. Okay, actual gateway, by sending this command, which the command is www.abc.com slash user equal to admin. Okay, so now if you see this actual call, so what it does, command executed. So we are not opening any kind of shell to execute the command or anything like that. We are just printing. Okay, so this is the command which is being executed successfully. This is how we are doing. Okay, so here if you see, for this particular execute call, what it does, it append the abc.com user equal to user equal to admin, and then it execute this command. Okay, for the second one, it has done, it appended user endpoint as user.user and then execute the command. And for the third, other object, since it has no endpoint implementation, so the else part was executed, and it gives the output as other user don't have gateway implementation. Okay, so this is how the proxy design is being carried out in this example. So let me just refresh it again. Okay, so you have, so what basically you are trying to do, okay, so when you are creating an object of the proxy gateway, okay, you are also giving the user, I mean, while creating the object, you are also defining which kind of users is when we are accessing this particular object. Okay, so we pass the users as either admin user or other. Okay, so this is how the different users are for this proxy gateway. So it checks whether the users are these three. If the users are among among these three, then what I say that you are authorized to access the gateway. Okay, and then what it does, then with the help of those object, proxy object, you call the execute call method. Okay, now execute call method, what it does, it first check whether you are authorized. It is authorized because in the constructor we have already evaluated whether it is a authorized or non-authorized user. So if it is authorized, it checks for the user whether he's a admin user, users, or anything apart from admin and users. So if it is admin and user, it try to add certain kind of endpoint, and then it execute the actual object execute call method. Okay, now actual object is being created in the constructor itself, so we use this actual object and then call the execute call with the command which is being enhanced inside the proxy gateway. Okay, so this is how we have implemented the proxy gateway. Okay, so in case if you have any doubt, you can just add comment. I'll just go over your comment and see if I can resolve your doubt as well. Okay, so this was there for this proxy design pattern. And again, if you have not subscribed this channel, do subscribe. We'll try to bring such interesting video, in coming days. Thank you.